Good, so now we haven't forgotten that. So we have a quorum here with Chair Myers. We have Guthrie, Dina Karen on Zoom with video, Lisa Hanairo and Carrie Schuffner. So we have quorum.
All right, we have quorum. As chair, I call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is number 1, the minutes from our meeting held 7/24. I have one correction that I would like to make to the minutes. The addition following, he suggested the better practice would be to have individual members send suggestions of topics they'd like considered for the agenda to the chair and have the chair decide if and when to put that topic on an agenda. I would like to add Chair Myers expressed reservations about having the chair use a personal email to store emails which are public records, and said, quote, "I would like to have future suggestions for agenda items be raised in public."
I think maybe since I'm writing it, if we could leave the direct quote out and just have me rephrase that in second person, that might be. Typically, I don't include direct quotes in minutes in case they're slightly incorrect.
This was taken directly from the video recording of that meeting.
So you're saying you would prefer a direct quote in the minutes?
Yes, that direct so Chair Myers expressed reservations about the wisdom of having the chair use, or excuse me, Chair Myers expressed reservations about having the chair use a personal email to store emails which are public records, and said, quote, "I would like to have future suggestions for agenda items be raised in public."
Oh.
I will get it that, Jane. Yep, sounds fine.
Guthrie, this is a unanimous consent request. You consent?
Yes.
Okay. I also consent. So with that amendment, or correction, excuse me, the minutes are accepted. Okay. Now we have an item on the agenda which I ask unanimous consent to move to item to become the new item 18 after the appointment of the committee secretary, which is to appoint a member of the Conservancy Lands Committee. I would like to do this when more members of the committee are present. So in the event that committee meets, Sean and I discussed the ordinance, and it appears that the chair represents the committee by default in those circumstances. I hope that members of the committee will step forward to serve on the Conservancy Lands Committee, but we will not be unrepresented in the interim.
I'm okay with that.
So the request is to move number 2 to number 18?
Yes.
Okay.
Or did you mean to defer that to a different meeting?
Yeah, actually, we should probably just defer that.
Okay.
No one else will join.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay.
So then should we take a motion to defer?
Just ask unanimous consent to defer consideration.
I agree.
I'm fine. Yep.
Okay, great. Next, we have rail spur repairs. And Sean, if you could walk us through that.
Sure. Oops. Just right. Previous item here. Okay, so rails for repairs, we did last year some emergency repairs and used part of the budget, but the lion's share of some of the upgrades are still outstanding. And so we bid out rail tie replacements and some rail replacements. especially on that curve between Highway 14 and University Green, the rail is pretty badly worn. And so we got a base bid and an alternate bid, both of which we can afford with the remaining budget. And that's what's recommended here tonight, is to recommend to the Finance Committee and Common Council award of a bid to North Shore Track Services for both the base bid and the alternate.
And it's the judgment of, oh, sorry.
I was just going to make a motion.
Okay, yeah.
So I move that we've recommended to the Finance Committee and the Common Council the award of a contract to North Shore Track Services, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $117,820.
Do we have a second for the motion?
And yep, I second it.
Ooh, that was really close. I'm gonna give it to you, Catherine.
All right,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. Sean.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 None opposed. Okay, water utility cross connection control program.
Right, this started, I think, around 2013. It was at that time a new requirement from the state that water utilities begin a proactive program to ensure that effectively backflow prevention, right? So that water supply and sewer lines cannot commingle, and that we can't then effectively taint our own water. And so we've been working with HydroCorp on that for quite some time. They've been a good partner in that program. And we have had 2-year agreements with them since at least 2015, but I think maybe even 2013. And so this is effectively re-upping an agreement. Our city attorney has gone through it with a new look. And so there were some suggestions for edits from our city attorney. And we're still working through the last one of those, which is about an insurance provision. But other than that, we've reached agreement. So the recommendation from staff is to enter into a renewed 2-year agreement with HydroCorp, subject to satisfaction of the city attorney with the agreement terms.
Go ahead and make that motion that we recommend to the Finance Committee and Common Council that we enter into the 2-year service contract agreement with HydroCorp, contingent upon satisfaction of the city attorney with the agreements with the contract.
I'll second that. I did have a question for Sean.
Yeah.
So Sean, do we have a cross connection control ordinance and or a control policy or plan? Because that's written into the agreement, is that they'll either review it or they'll buy one.
Yeah, that's actually one of the terms that we flagged earlier as no longer being applicable. That was done really early on in our program. And so actually not one of the 2-year agreement terms here anymore because it was already done.
And I'm fairly certain that Larry or Matt will catch this, but one of the things I didn't see was the equal benefits clause in the.
That's already been added. It's the
Good.
new section 5. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how that got missed in previous versions, but it's in now, so. Good.
There any other discussion? All right, in that case, call the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Hearing none opposed. I ask unanimous consent to move the items 6, 7, 8, and 9 ahead in the agenda.
I agree.
Gayatri,
Yep, I do too.
okay, discussion of the item operating budget DPW is now in order.
Yeah. Catch up here a sec. Okay, so former 6, new 5 would be the operating budget, and previously, I think I had included just the decision items, but this year it was easier for me to just print the whole spreadsheet. So if committee members didn't have time to go through the whole workbook, I understand. If we want to focus the discussion on any particular line items or on the decision items, that would be fine. I'm just going to try to scroll to more sort of the high level view of the decision items. This is a new format for us. So we were asked this year to try to group decision items. And so I split out revenue separate from expenses and gave just some labels to expenses. The lion's share of which I would say are just maintaining service levels. Things cost more and or they come in smaller packages and or they're hard to find. And then there's a couple of specific requests, one of which was just, actually maybe 2 of which were just new services entirely. So we could go through just those sheets if you want, or stop when there are questions. Oops. So,
I had a couple of questions and comments.
okay.
So on page 49 of the packet, I'm gonna mention 2 typos, only because they're words that you might search on, like resources, so I think it would be a good idea to fix that in the water resources.
Is this page? Oh, okay. I can ask Bill about that. That comes to me from the finance department and I'm not allowed to touch it.
Okay,
Probably for good reason, but
yeah,
so on
That one?
page 49.
yeah. And then technology on page 51. And again, I only bring it up because I know, like, if you were to search for water resources right now, you would not find that.
5618, Lisa, come on. So resources and technology, you say, on 50?
Yes, on page 51.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you could explain on this page what some of the outside services are.
Of
Storm sewers.
the storm sewer outside service. So that's typically when we've had to hire somebody to help us with something, and or rent equipment. So in the past, when our own street crew has tried to do sort of significant, more than usual work, right? We'd have to go rent a backhoe or some other equipment to take care of that. And that would go under outside services, or if we have to hire a contractor to get something done because we don't have the capability, that's an outside service.
Okay. And then on page 55, there's a reference to a stormwater project, storm drain rehabilitation project next year that would not be taken on, so that it's the very last line about summer LTE help.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea which storm drainage rehabilitation project?
The next one in our line that we were looking at is the Algonquin North, that ditch north of Algonquin Drive.
I know residents in my very neighborhood would actually be pleased to have that one deferred because they're still concerned about that. Not that that matters. I was just curious to know which one.
That's what we had been thinking of, but yeah, we couldn't get to it and we don't think we'll be able to get to it.
I would also add on page 57, I love the EV maintenance training being put in there. So thank you for that. And on page 58, I believe we're bringing the budget for snow and ice removal downtown from this Community Development Authority into this budget. That I support that. It makes sense. I never understood why an entity charged with slum clearance and blight elimination is budgeting for snow and ice removal downtown. It doesn't.
I think previous councils have agreed with that, but were unable to fit it into the budget as a priority. And so they sort of just pushed it on to the CDA.
And I had a question about the hours for the recycling center on page 16, where I was tripling the amount of money and salaries, and I'm just wondering, is that for a full-time or open all day on Saturday? Are we still gonna be open on Wednesdays? Well, that's 12,000 this year, but next year the requested budget is 34,000.
Well, this 24 is in error. And I talked with Diego about that. This is the base amount of 24 is supposed to be the approved amount from 23.
Okay.
And someplace in there, the hours got all mixed up in one of the workbooks. And so this 24 really should be closer to 12.
Okay, and that explains it.
Explains half of it.
And then if we're sticking with the operating budget, well, I guess this must be page 69. That's already getting into the capital projects, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So I don't know if there were any other notes, decision items, stuff, or line item things that were of question in the submittals. I will note, Lisa, one of the things you mentioned was about EV training.
Mhm.
And part of what we're trying to figure out was what would that look like? So if we send a mechanic to class to go get some training, how do we take care of our current fleet? And we don't have an answer for that yet. One of our other hopes was if we could attract a mechanic technician that has EV training,
Yeah.
that might be ideal. Because we've had a shortage of mechanic help anyway. And so getting someone with experience in that might save everybody.
Be good. So Sean, do you need a motion from us to endorse the operating budget?
Typically we have done that in the past, yes. And this is for me just to turn it into the finance department, and then we'll go through that before it gets to the finance committee. Typically it has in the past just taken the form of, the committee moving submittal to the finance department of the 24 operating budget as proposed by staff or prepared by staff, unless there are changes.
Move submittal.
I'll go ahead and
Okay.
make that motion and then I guess just that one correction, which I guess is already being worked on, right? Correct.
The typos I'll pass along to the
Yeah.
right people.
And then the I forget what that fell under, that was like, the recycling center.
Mhm.
That's already been fixed, but I don't have that version yet.
Okay, got it.
We've had that talk.
Okay.
So it's recognized what went wrong and it's been fixed. but-
Right,
But I didn't get an update.
okay.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Hearing none opposed, motion carries 4-0, moving us on to our our capital budget for DPW. Now, as a courtesy, I let committee members who know they're going to be unable to attend the meeting to email any comments that they have. There are comments for agenda item number 7 from Alderwoman Wokos. So I'm going to read them into the record now. PW 20-24-06 Westfield Road reconstruction. Quote, I support this and hope that roads that have still not been reconstructed since the 2018 flooding in District 2 will be prioritized. In that vein, I support PW 24-11 and would like to see that moved up in priority. I would, and then quote, I would also like to see PW 24-14 moved up in priority, perhaps to replace 24-07.
What was that last sentence? Moving up, I'm sorry, beyond 11, moving up what?
The Park
The Park
Elmwood
Elmwood.
project would replace Clark and Lee. Although they're not comparable.
Yeah, they're kind of different.
Yeah,
That one's the
Yeah, this isn't about
24-14.
rebuilding the street. This is about, there was an idea for putting effectively a traffic circle, an island in the middle of this
Right.
intersection, which is.
Yeah, I don't
very-
think we could replace, like, we couldn't necessarily swap that. But okay, that's her comments, I
Yeah,
guess.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I got these all in the same order that we had talked about at the last meeting, other than, oh no, that's on the non-street listing. I had completely forgotten about a different project. So I think this is what we had talked about last time. But if the committee wants to make a change, I can work on that.
And Sean, what we're usually allowed, is this where we're allowed 2 million about?
Usually.
So we're not doing all that, obviously, next year.
Well, no, that's excluding TIF stuff.
Okay,
So there are 3 projects here listed that are TIF funding. Go to a different sheet here. So of the 2024 projects that are broken by funding source, the capital budget would have 2 million and TIF would have 10.1.
okay,
So I think all of the projects that are listed in the amounts listed are within that target.
so it's just a matter if we want to try to reshuffle the priority level.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's possible too, the council would say, well, this year we want to do 1.6,
Mhm.
right? In which case, then it would matter more which of these are nearer the bottom.
Right,
I had some additional comments about some of these. That's okay.
Yeah.
I wondered about, so on page 69, I looked at the individual items.
I don't
I
know,
go to
do we
page-
want to try to do these by group, like streets, non-streets and vehicles, or just all together? I don't know.
I think they are all together, so that's,
Yeah.
we could. I was just gonna go through the comments I had on the projects that I had comments on, and I don't think it's labeled, oh, there it is. Okay, so this one, my question is just, are we really going to say that the private landscaping project is our #1 priority? I feel like, I know we're on hook to fund it. I do not think it's our number one priority,
And that's the one I added, that the committee did
Yeah.
not previously see.
yeah.
It
So-
had fallen off my radar to look ahead because this is actually looking behind.
So I'd like to bump that lower, just because I think the optics look so bad that that would be what we put first. Recognizing we will fund it because we signed an agreement with them. I think I know my constituents would think that the surveillance cameras and the Century Allen Lake Street stuff redesign, that's more important. And then I'm wondering about the biodiesel pilot project that I know the Sustainability Committee mentioned. I didn't see that on the list. And I guess I'll leave it at those two and see if anybody else has other comments.
I guess I have a question about like, what does priority mean, right? Does it mean that we have to absolutely do number one? Because if we have an agreement, like maybe that's why it has, so that it doesn't get bumped in any way, like, I don't know.
I feel like if it makes it through the finance committee process, it won't get bumped, right? And everybody on council had to approve the agreement, so they know this one. And I see that one like being the last one on the list, only because it's like, yeah, we have to pay it and we will pay it. Our focus is on all these other things that we have to do instead of just paying someone for the work they're doing. But
Well, and that's why I put it as priority one, because the council already committed to it.
okay,
I don't know that they. Well, short of new action to say we're no longer committed to it, they have to fund it there.
of course they have to fund it. That isn't my point. My point simply is it says priority, and the number one priority to me should not be a private landscaping project. It should be something like the Century Allen Lake Street intersection that we all talked about last time. And the Plan Commission has talked about as being a nightmare. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding what priority means. But I can tell you council will not drop this one from the list. And for that reason, I don't see why it would be difficult to put it as our last priority in terms of importance to the city.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking, like, what is priority? Because I guess again, like, my concern would be like, oh, they cut it off. Somebody forgets or something, right? And it's like only the top 10 go through.
Yeah.
So I guess like I agree with maybe
Right.
bumping it down a little bit, but where do we put it? So that it doesn't get, yeah.
And I'd feel better if there were some sort of guidance on where that line is. I know the council in past has said someplace about $100,000. Now, that's not firm.
It's not guaranteed.
So I don't know. I certainly wouldn't feel bad showing it as a different priority because I happen to agree that it doesn't seem like the most pressing issue to the city.
Mhm.
On the other hand, the council already said we're doing this. So certainly open to change here.
Should we bump it down to? Seven or something? I don't know. I'm just like,
Or could we just have a column where it says that some of these projects have already been authorized to move forward, maybe from a prior period, and they just need to be done?
Just that very first one is under. The council's agreed to that already.
I know,
But-
but that's what I'm saying. I mean, when we're looking at a budget, normally we have, line items that are already approved, but have not been completed, during the phase.
Oh, sure, carryovers kind of thing.
Yeah.
We started
Yeah.
them, didn't finish them. Yeah, this
Right.
never got budgeted or it never got funded. It was just approved as an agreement with no funding allocated.
Okay.
I do wonder, could you, instead of priority one, could you just put required or something? And
Oh,
not,
boy. I can't change that.
okay. But yeah, actually, if I move it down to 7, that might not make it then, because you said 100,000.
Well, in the past, that's been general guidance.
Yeah.
I'll just point out that both Kendra and I are on the finance committee, who will
Okay.
be going over every page like this with a fine tooth comb, so I'm confident it's not gonna get
Okay.
taken out. Yeah.
Okay.
I suggest we bump it to 14. Just move it to the bottom of the 2024 list.
We got the new after 14.
That works for me.
All right, we have motion, we have a second. Looks like we have an aye from Gayatri.
Yep.
All right, aye, hearing none opposed. It is now item number 15, or excuse me, it's below 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Following what this 14 is.
Yes.
14.5. So I missed the form of the motion. Was that from you, Carrie, or from you, Lisa?
I
Lisa.
propose moving it. to-
Okay.
Yeah,
And I second it.
Looking at item number 2412, the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. Going to take this opportunity to bring up that there is a flashing beacon out of control on Park.
At South,
Yeah,
yeah.
yesterday, so I thought I should mention it. The cameras, 2405. Is there any way, since it's only $16,000, is there any way to put that into the 2023 budget?
It's entirely possible. I mean, if there's sufficient excess capital budget not identified, the council can allocate that to other projects, including to a landscape project. They could just
Where
use
are
this
those-
year's money.
Where are those supposed to go?
In the mock
Okay.
surveillance cameras,
Okay.
I think council might find that a priority, so I'll talk to my colleagues about bumping that up to 2023.
any other comments on this part of the budget?
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, Mr. Owen, we haven't reached vehicles yet. Is your,
Well, that's on page, it is part of
yeah,
the capital budget. Oh, good.
Yeah.
We're talking about just this table.
Yeah, we're
So
talking about
maybe
just this
we'll go
table.
back to the streets at some point too, but
That's what I was wondering. If we
Yeah.
wanted to follow up on Andrew's notes.
Yeah.
Or if there's other.
Yeah.
notes.
yeah. But I don't have any other comments here. Did you have more?
I wondered about the number 14, the traffic signal. What is it, lead pedestrian
interval.
intervals?
Yeah.
So adding those, I know the Ped Bike and Transit will be happy with that. Where are you thinking that'll happen in 2024? Because $20,000 doesn't seem like, or do we already have?
It's mostly study and programming, so it's not a hardware thing. Well, that I can envision anyway, it's not a hardware thing. So it's mostly, first off, sitting down and figuring out what does that mean for coordination? What does that mean for timing and traffic cues at certain approaches? And then what's that advice? And then following that, what do we want to do about it? So that's intended as an estimate of the 17 traffic signals under our jurisdiction.
Should we go back to street?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's move back to streets. Okay, so we have a few comments from Alder Wokos. She supports PW 2406. And I've already read the comment, but she hopes that the roads that is still have been reconstructed since the 2018 flooding in District 2 will be prioritized.
Sean, the order of priority right now, is that coming from staff? Is it coming from just the road conditions that these are like, I don't know, the ones that need it the most?
Probably no to the second question, and mostly yes to the first question. So it's mostly started by staff, and then the committee went through streets and ranked them in priority as projects go. And we took the Clark Lee from reconstruction to reconstruction redesign to circle back about whether different bike improvements could be considered in the design. So that's no longer proposed as funding for construction in 2024. And then reordered a few things, but not very many from what had been proposed. And it largely follows through, like we tried to do a couple of big reconstruction projects. And then as a pretty high priority, surface treatments, because we get a terrific longevity per dollar, on those kinds of things. So we try to keep surface treatments really high. And then we try to get a few resurfacing projects in there and design for the following year. And then it's sort of a free for all as we get below that.
It looks like the Kenyon resurfacing is basically number 2 in terms of resurfacing projects. So it should make it, right? Because I know that was one of Kendra's concerns, was to bump it up.
Yeah, so we have the Westfield Hampstead area.
Oh yeah, number
as
3,
kind of
yes.
our
Okay.
major resurfacing focus, but then we put Kenyon a little bit further down. Just in case, but then we had some of those designed for the following year things thrown in there,
Right.
which are pretty high priority too.
Yeah, I don't know where we would bump it up any further, I guess. And it seems like it would make it in the cutoff.
It feels to me likely.
Yeah.
One of the wild cards is what we decide to do with Lake and Dewey. We don't have the design started yet, so we don't have a good cost estimate. And the lakeshore part of that, something we'll have to decide at some point. Are we going to try to build that with the road project or defer it and sort of just leave a flat area near the lakeshore and do that as a separate future project if it starts?
I don't guess I don't have any great ideas on how to make this any better.
Yeah, I don't have any great ideas on how to reconfigure this priority order either. Unfortunately, I don't have a suggestion from Alder Wokos on what she would like bumped down. Just that she would like this item moved up.
I'll suggest again, since Kendra is on the finance committee, she and I both will have another, every council member will see these again, and the finance committee members get to see them a couple, 2-3 times. So I would suggest that we leave it the way it is. We're aware of her comments to you, Mr. Chair, and then we can work it out on finance committee.
Okay. Yep.
You had asked the question earlier about the biodiesel project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So maybe too many questions at once.
Dominic Bindle, a resident, and Brad and I have been looking into information on that. We have still some questions. We got some information. Brad got some information fairly recently. What we don't have yet is it put together and packaged as a proposal that we could bring forward. So it's not impossible that during the budget cycle we'll figure that out, but we don't have that yet.
And then a heads up to you, Sean, I did mention at the plan commission meeting, because we did the planning department's budget last week. And the EV charging project and the streetlight replacement project show up on their budget as part of our sustainability goals in the strategic plan, but these projects are obviously connected to public works in a big way, so I had suggested that those probably should be folded into your budget, and your budget increased as a result. But they're not planning projects so much as public works projects.
Yeah, we haven't, well, I mean, Kelly's been coordinating with one of our
Right.
techs. We haven't really taken it on as a project either, largely because of staff times. Not that Kelly's swimming in time. That's been one of our problems. We have lots of good things to pursue and limited time to do it.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have any other discussion on this part of the agenda item?
Streets or
Streets.
None for me.
I didn't hear any direction to change any priorities or alter any dollars.
All right. I think there was discussion of potentially moving 2414 to replace 2407 at the request of Alder Wilkos, but I think we discussed that initially in the beginning when I read Alder Wilkos's comments into the record. Decided against it if my recollection is correct.
Yeah, I think we should just leave it as is for now.
Okay, so now we are on to fleet additions. Sean, if you could please unmute Mr. Owen, I believe he had a comment that he wanted to make.
Yeah, and I can't unmute him, but he can.
Oh, all right, Mr. Owen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Robert Owen. I live at 1311 Middleton Street in Middleton. Have concerns about the last item in the capital budget that we're looking at, the Ford F-550 with dump box. I think this budget request is premature. This would be the second truck of its kind in the streets fleet. As I understand it, the first truck is currently filling the required job. It's only busy actually in the summertime, according to Brad. So I think this is one that we could postpone for a year, and I think there's reason to postpone it. Brad is still working on an option to run the F-550 dump trucks on biodiesel year round. He's getting information on it, but he doesn't have all the information he needs. It's my understanding. Also, at the same time, there are now electric options for 550 trucks with dump boxes. There are not a lot of them, but there are a few of them out there. And I think if we wait a year, there will be more of them out there, probably at a better price. So it's really premature to decide what our lower carbon approach is with regard to these trucks. And if we don't need the truck right in this year's budget, my suggestion is to defer it so that we can have full information as to the biodiesel option, as to the electric option. And make a confident choice as to one or the other. I also have a comment with regard to something else, but it may be 2 items down the agenda. That's the utilities request for 90,000.
Mr. Owen, I will recognize you for that item when it is up for discussion. It's not currently up for discussion.
Okay, then that's all I have to say on that item. Thank you.
Thank you.
On his point about talking to Brad about the usage, I mean, I would agree that this one, it is at the bottom of the list. I would have taken it off the list. Mainly because, as Mr. Owen indicated, there will be better options coming soon. I noted that there should have been a life cycle cost analysis done under the city's sustainable purchasing policy, and we still don't know what that is. And so unless this is a, you know, like if this were replacing something that we are going to lose the use of, I could see prioritizing it among one of the options for next year. But since it's intended to increase efficiency, you know, these are good things, increasing efficiency, productivity, and versatility, but it's not absolutely necessary, in my opinion. So I would be in favor of taking this one off the list for 2024.
I have a question since like staff, you know, I want to be able to like support staff and what they need. I guess what are some of the reasons, Sean, that staff are?
I prefer actually to let Brad speak to this directly because he's more directly plugged into how the current F-550 is used and how he's hearing from staff that additional use would be helpful.
Mhm.
Is Brad available to speak on this?
He just
Yep. Sorry. So basically I've been requesting this, I believe, since 2018, when that was recognized that there was a need for another one. When we increased our staff in 2018, adding a streets department crew member, we had to add another dump truck. Generally, when we're doing projects for construction during the summer, we don't have enough trucks to get to certain places, i.e. construction sites, towing our equipment where it needs to be, etc. So with that said, this would be, like I stated before, a weekly to daily use product or piece of equipment during the summer. And when I say summer, I mean like we're starting construction projects now in March and April sometimes. So from April through November. And it would also be utilized as a backup for plowing and snow removal. This would also be used during snow season as the primary for parking lots that the city owns. With our streets department, you know, being asked to do more and more and not really having the equipment to be able to do more and more, this is kind of where that request comes in.
Thanks, Brad. I mean, because I remember this being on the list for quite a few years as well. So that's why I just wanted to make sure we're having all the information to make the decision. And then one other question is, and I'm very supportive of the other, you know, electric, biofuel. If those do come available, can we sell this truck and replace it with something different? Like, is that an option?
Well, the biodiesel is actually more of a retrofit tank kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it still needs some diesel anyway,
Mhm.
but it mostly would run on biodiesel.
But, or an EV option or something, like, is that?
That would be different. Yeah,
Yeah.
then that's a
Cause I just
change out.
think that it's probably gonna take some time. That even if we defer it to next year. We might not, we'll go without a vehicle for maybe 2 more years, right? Cause it just may take some time.
And that might be the part of the tough part is trying to figure out, well, I mean, you wouldn't buy a brand new truck and then a year later try to sell it because you just lose your shirt.
Mhm.
If it's going to be 5 or 6 years, maybe that makes more sense. And I just don't know, you know, what that risk is or what our risk tolerance is. Timing that.
And with us staying as, you know, having just Ford in our fleet for right now, I know talking with the reps from Ford, they're a few years out before they're going to have something this size in a EV option.
And Brad, have you
Yeah.
priced any other, because I know one of the issues that has come up is whether we should have a contract or solely purchase Fords, recognizing that right now that's staff can maintain. But did you look at EV options that aren't Fords?
I did. In 2024, the first prototype for Atlas, which would be a 1-ton truck, will be coming out. That's built in Arizona, maintained in Arizona. My fallback on that one is if, the first year comes out as 2024, we order one and, they're not as reliable as we hope they were. We'll be shipping it back and forth to Arizona for whatever service issues it would have. That's one of the reasons why we've stayed with Ford. Another reason is because we want to have our fleet all the same. We don't want to have GM parts, Ford parts, Atlas parts, Tesla parts everywhere. We don't have that big of a shop, so we don't really have the space to be able to do all that.
And one more question, did you do a life cycle cost analysis of this vehicle versus an EV?
Without there being a good EV option in the area, I did not. I can whip that up for you guys, and I do have. I did request a meeting with Dominic to be able to do that with the F1 or the F550 here and the rest of the vehicles we have up for replacement. I was supposed to meet with him last week, but I had a family thing pop up that I could not make it.
Okay, thanks.
I think based on that, there's not a lot of availability that we should leave it on the budget for next year. But that could maybe change if there is a option that comes available. That's. I guess
Yeah,
I'm
it's hard.
supportive of the staff needs.
Pause a sec. Guthrie, I think your video has slipped off of your face.
Yeah, it's fallen off my laptop.
I run into that problem myself. Thank you. Yeah, I don't have any really solid advice. I think it comes down to what the committees and then finance committees and then councils overall needs and capacities and thoughts on, what's that risk and what's our best path forward.
So I think we all, at least my takeaway from Brad's comments is that we need a vehicle with the capabilities of an F550 with a dump box. That vehicle may not necessarily need to be the F550 if there is a suitable vehicle where there is a life cycle cost analysis that is comparable. Would that satisfy your concerns, Alder Hanairo?
I'll probably, if we're gonna vote on this table, I'll probably just vote present to reserve the option of.
Okay.
I mean, I do recognize that this is needed. I understand that. I'm not convinced that there's only a, I just find it's hard for me to believe that there isn't another option closer than Arizona. But I haven't done any research, so.
Yeah, that's why I've suggested allocating the amount
And
for a vehicle with those capabilities. And that way, if an alternative is identified in the subsequent process prior to when finance takes up this budget, then finance has that flexibility.
so taking out the reference to Ford F550 and just a dump truck with dump box.
Yeah, the capabilities that Brad listed.
Well, but part of it gets into the operating budget is if GMC makes something that's equivalent, then we're into the stocking different parts and having different analysis tools and all the things. Because we used to do that. We used to have multiple different makes in our fleet, and it was just a mess trying to take care of that stuff. So that's part of why we went to a preference for one brand. Just to limit the stock on hand.
And then the budget might not be sufficient, right? So if there is an equivalent in terms of functionality, it might only be, half of what it actually costs.
Yeah, those are both totally fair points. thought that perhaps the parts and the other maintenance issues would factor into the life cycle cost analysis. But because that would be a new system for that vehicle that we would have to factor into its life cycle cost. There
See, Kevin has.
Kevin, yeah, Mr. Spittler, you're recognized. Please unmute.
Well, I thought one of the beauties of the electric vehicles is they require a lot less maintenance. And also somewhere in this budget, there's EV training that's been budgeted. So I don't think you need nearly as many parts. Certainly don't need as much lube and oil for an EV. I think and that's supposed to be part of the life cycle cost estimate that shows how you save money in the long run with electric vehicle. So I just wanted to raise those points for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spittler. All right, so do we have a motion on the F-550 with a dump box?
Kind of torn either way. It seems like we maybe don't have all information. I mean, I don't know. I guess we could defer it to next year and then see if we can find a replacement, but I guess I just don't want to keep pushing it off since it's been requested since 2018.
If you're making a motion to defer, I would second that.
Okay, so there is a.
I don't know if I made the motion.
Okay.
Thinking out loud.
Thinking out loud.
Okay.
Because it's like 1 year is okay, but I just worry that we'll keep pushing it down the road. But if
Oh,
that's.
can we just leave this line item on the budget with the note that, a life cycle or a comparable product will be searched for and the details would be brought to the committee prior to approval of the budget?
Well, two things. One, Brad, if you could unmute, did I hear you say that you are planning or trying to get together a life cycle cost analysis on comparable? Or was that for
Yes.
other vehicles?
That's for this, that's going to include this vehicle as well.
Okay, and
So
then
it's any ICE vehicle that's going to be requested at all is going to have a, we're going to use the Falco tool to give you guys an analysis on it.
so I think that will be helpful. And then secondarily, though, I don't think it can come back to this committee because by Friday, this is going to be in finance department's hands and on its way toward the finance committee, not coming back to the public works committee.
Well, I guess since it's already in the works, then I will make a motion to defer to 2025. And that way we'll have the analysis and the staff maybe doesn't, they can take a little bit more time to complete that.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Hearing none opposed, motion carries. And now we are through.
I think we need a motion to endorse the 2024 capital budget.
Yes, as discussed, yes. Would you like to offer that motion?
Sure, I move that we endorse, let me go back to Carrie's motion. I move that we submit the capital book 2024 capital budget for DPW to the finance committee with the changes discussed.
All right, we have a motion. We have,
I'll second.
okay, great. We have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
I
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0. And we are now on to operating budget utilities.
Right, so this is kind of the same thing where we've got water revenues, water expenses, sewer revenues, sewer expenses. And then there's the whole decision item matrix put together. There aren't a lot of decision items proposed in the budget. And it's mostly a function of, we have a new water utility manager, Mike Meyer, who's actually on the call with us tonight. He wasn't able to be here in person, but if he has the capability to turn his camera on, he can at least say hi. So he prepared this budget. He came to us at the end of July. So 2 weeks ago, he got his computer to work and put budgets together. And I'm very happy he's on board. He's been on staff on the water utility crew, on the parks crew. So he's been working in Middleton for quite a long time, went to Shorewood Hills for a while and is back in this capacity. So he prepared these knowing that for the most part, what we're trying to do is train a lot of new crew members and take care of what we've got, but keep it a little bit easy on the initiatives going into 2024. And that's in part why there aren't a lot of decision items. We focuses on getting things fixed as they need to be, but not building brand new things with a few exceptions. I don't know, did you want to say hi, Mike? Looked like you have your camera on, but I can't hear you. Oh, you're muted yet. Yeah.
I just unmuted. Yep, I'm actually in a Wanakee Fire Department. I'm also do the financials and the treasurer here as well. So we're doing our monthly meeting, and as everybody knows, it's budget season. So same stuff. But yeah, I've been with Middleton for the last 2 weeks. So it's kind of had the budget thrown at me. I did the best that I could with the knowledge I could. I'm not gonna have knowledge of a ton of answers to the questions. I know some basic needs of what the water utility needs right now. As Sean mentioned, we have an uphill battle with training, a lot of new personnel. So we're just looking to maintain and keep status quo and keep services high is our goal.
Perfect. So I don't know if there are any questions on the operating budget.
I wondered what if you look at page 149 in the packet, under operating expenses for sewer utility, there's a reference to transportation expenses and then also power and fuel dash pumping : PPE. I did not know what that meant.
Transportation expenses. I don't know enough detail on that myself, or the power and fuel pumping PPE. Huh,
That's protective.
personal
Yeah.
protective equipment.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what that has to do with power and fuel. Of a sewer utility. Unless it's some sort of, hazmat kind of equipment for going into a pumping station or certain areas of a pumping station, but let me look into that and get back to you on those questions. So it's about
And then on page 152,
60
there's a reference to
to 82.
garage and equip. I wasn't sure what that means. And I guess what I'm interested in is knowing how much do we actually budget for fuel separately throughout utilities, or is that just rolled into transportation expenses or garage?
Right, it's a good question. Where was the garage
That's on
thing?
page 152. That one's 371,000.
Garage
think Robert-
equipment. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Owen, could you please mute your microphone?
Yes.
I
Thank you.
don't have enough detail on that either offhand, because that's a higher number than I was thinking. It's sort of like the utility pays rent for the use of the mock, right? Because it's its own enterprise fund. But that's not the right number for that. So let me look into that too. $825. But that wouldn't be in the right scale for vehicle fuel either.
Mhm. Okay, I was just curious. So is it okay to make a motion to endorse the 2024 operating budget for utilities?
Before we do that, I do have one question. Mr. Owen, you'd wanted to make a public comment related to utilities. Was it related to the operating budget or the capital budget?
Capital.
Capital, okay. Capital budget, okay. All right,
So I move that we submit to the finance committee the 2024 operating budgets for utilities with clarification from Sean about the transportation expenses, power and fuel pumping, PPE, and garage and equipment.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
all in favor, please say aye.
I
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, motion carries. We're now moving on to the capital budget for utilities. Now I believe that Mr. Owen, yes, you have your hand raised. You have a public comment that you would like to make. You are recognized for that comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was an item in the capital budget for the water and sewer utility for a vehicle, not really identified specifically, but it was a $90,000 item. And no, I couldn't find any specificity on what the vehicle was, but the dollar amount would suggest something like an F-350 based work truck. And that would be consistent with some of the other water utility trucks. So I'm assuming it's a work truck. And the fact is that there are now electric work trucks in use. They are not produced by Ford, but that is not a disqualification in my view. There are electric trucks, and I think they should be looked at in a FALCA analysis if we're going to be doing that with other ICE trucks. That we should look at the electric options for work trucks for the utility. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, and just to make things a little clear, because I saw Sean digging through the spreadsheet. You were making that comment in reference to WU-24-04 water utility vehicle replacement. Priority
Yes.
number 4, $90,000. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And do you, Brad, have handy what the vehicle replacement program entails for 2024?
Yeah, that one would be it'd be for an F-350 replacement
Okay,
with a utility box on it.
good to know.
I can say this too, we're looking at the possibility of a different kind of vehicle, a different Ford for that. I have to, Mike hasn't really had a whole lot of time to get his feet under him, but this is part of the discussion I was planning on having with him with their fleet going forward.
Yeah, I know that's still in work, the whole replacement program, so I appreciate that.
So Sean, is this replacing a vehicle that's, like, we're just trying to get ahead of things so that it's like a
Yes,
continuous like improvement where it's like the vehicle's getting older, we need to replace it at some point, or is it in dire need, like
oh,
it's failing, we need to replace it?
I can't answer that question. Brian Gebhardt, our lead mechanic, goes through the fleet and tries to make those kinds of assessments. Because it used to be that every department head would go to Brian and say, of just my department's fleet, which ones are in the most need? But then nobody was looking at the overall picture and saying, citywide, here's the overall need. And we transferred to that system years ago, where Brian is really making those recommendations across the whole fleet and trying to update it so that he's keeping track of, you know, we thought this one based on age would be a big, you know, need. But it turns out this other one that's maybe not as old is getting more wear and tear and is in a higher need of replacement than something else. So they look kind of at the whole fleet and then make those recommendations within the context of trying to balance dollars per year. So
Makes sense.
trying to run a program that's in the ballpark of $500,000 a year.
Okay, so we don't necessarily have the specific vehicle information right now on this vehicle, just where it fits overall into the scheme of the vehicle replacement program as identified.
Yeah, exactly. So Brad confirmed that it is an F-350.
Okay,
And that it's in the utilities, not in the general fund, but that it falls into the mechanic's assessment of needing to be replaced.
If I could add something, Sean.
Yeah.
So I do believe that this is to replace another truck that is, you know, older, needing of, you know, has more repairs. It's to replace that truck to keep the fleet basically in the same turnover process before it starts nickel and diming the department. Next year there will be a truck that comes up that we're actually going to be looking to replace with a van. And many years ago, back when I did work for the city, there was a van, and that van was removed. So this is strictly basically an F-350 to replace an older, more worn out F-350 with the work box.
Yeah, exactly. Good input. That's what the program's designed to do, is catch things before they get onto the really catastrophic part of the maintenance curve, where you can keep it rolling. You speak of the old utility van. I drove that for a while. It didn't get out of the fleet. It got all the way down to engineering is what happened.
I know it got hit and it was in a car accident or several. But yeah, it was that we are looking to go back to that next year. And I know there's EV possibilities with such a vehicle as that. And we do, I am fortunate enough before my time now that you guys did budget for my vehicle, which is very nice, which is that blue, beautiful Mach, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yes. I've only had a couple chances to get into it and run out to the Mach and then back. So I haven't been with it very much, but it's very nice. So thank you all for that. You can see the utility is, you know, trying to work the EV angle where it's appropriate.
Yeah, you'll have to get me out sometime.
So I kind of think we should leave this item in, since it's replacing a vehicle that might be more costly to repair, with like the knowledge that they are looking at EV replacements in the future. or it's part of our cycle, because it's one thing that we definitely need to keep asking for, but I don't know if we can stop everything and, I don't know if we're there yet, I guess. Doesn't sound like we are.
Yeah, I have similar reservations about removing this request. I think that long-term, we know what the long-term plan is here. But in this specific instance, I think it makes sense to go with the recommendation of our mechanic. With the understanding that we're in a period of fleet transition.
I agree with that.
So. Any other discussion on the capital improvement plan for the water utility? This table specifically.
Or do you mean water and sewer?
Or yeah, water and sewer. Sorry, I'm looking at the sheet. Yeah. Looking at the sheet for this table specifically, I'm asking if there's any more discussion on this before we. All right, is there a motion to accept these priorities? The priorities that have been assigned on this table? So
Do we need to
keeping,
combine the water and sewer though in the motion, or we can do it separate?
You can do them.
yeah, we can do it separately, or we can just move on for
We
discussion.
did the operations
Yeah,
together.
Yeah,
Okay.
the capital has water and sewer components to it. Did you mean to do them both? or-
So did the operating. The operating had
yeah.
things broken out too.
It did, yeah. I thought the motion for operating was to do the whole operating budget, water and sewer.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's what
yeah.
I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, okay,
Are we talking about the?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Utility?
yeah,
Or
or do we just want to move on?
Yeah, let's.
to-
maybe
just
discuss
water,
it.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
I think
Yeah.
that works.
Yep, okay, great. So is there any other discussion on this agenda item? Moving on to sewer. It's like there's an item for sewer main replacement. Um,
I'll go ahead and make a motion unless there's any questions, but otherwise to approve or put forward the capital improvement plan for sewer and water utilities to the finance committee.
I'll second that.
all right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, hearing none. We have adopted the capital budget. I would ask unanimous consent from this body to move Bell Farm Phase 1 final plat, Bell Farm Phase 1 final plan, Bell Farm Phase 1 plan approval, Bell Farm Phase 1 city developer agreement up in the order of consideration so that we can discuss those since we have representatives here for that.
I agree.
I agree.
Gayatri?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so we are now on Bell Farm Phase 1 final plat.
It would be handy for me, actually, sorry, if we backed up and went to the jurisdictional transfer, because that's an integral part of
Integral part of
getting this plat working.
Okay. I'd ask you.
I have no objection.
Okay,
No objection.
Gayatri?
No objection either.
All right, we will consider resolution or 2023-44, accepting jurisdictional transfer 374 from Wisdot for Parmenter Street from Springton Court to Greenbrier Road, PC 2583, 22 125, 09 117. Sean, there's a draft resolution.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, sorry.
I was just going to say, I trust we've all read the documents, and I know this has been a long time coming. And so I am prepared to move that we recommend to the Common Council adoption of Resolution 2023-44, accepting jurisdictional transfer 374 from Wisdot for Parmenter Street from Springton Court to Greenbrier Road.
All right, we have a motion on the table. I will second it. All in favor? Please say aye.
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 All right. Motion carries. Now on to Bell Farm Phase 1 final plat.
All right. So we've been talking about this for a while, and I have some recommended things to take care of before effective final approval. They're pretty straightforward. I think they're going to be easy to take care of. We do have a newer draft of the covenants. So there's an 8-10 draft instead of an 8-7 draft. Took care of just one other minor thing that we were talking about. Beyond that, I don't know if there's a particular time in mind. I just drafted March 31st of next year. Is there any concern there for a different date by which these all should be addressed for final effective date?
Yeah, that's fine.
That'll work. That's okay.
And may we see the staff recommendation, because you said that the current draft of the covenants is 8-10. Did that update address the contingency number 4? Or does it just need to change to 8-10?
It's not yet recorded, but that's just bad swallowing, not COVID. Yeah, so we have this document in hand. It looks fine to me, so once we have the recorded copy, this is checked off.
So we should change that to 8-10.
Correct. Yeah.
Motion.
Yeah. And there's this other group of covenants that are not related just to this one city developer agreement. That's also 8-10.
And are there any things that you need to discuss in these contingencies? I know this too has been a long time in the making. And so I guess I'm prepared to move approval, to open discussion, to move that we recommend to the Common Council. We recommend that the Common Council approve the Bell Farm plat with a deferred effective date of approval upon completion of, and then listing all of those items, updating the current draft to 8-10. And that if the above items are not completed by March 31st, 2024, then the approval is void.
Let me ask, Kathleen, Estella, Bruce, do you have any concerns with any of these bullet items?
I think we've been
You're pretty much on it.
Yeah, I
Ben.
think we're.
working through these with city staff.
Yeah, covenants, we have a final, or as far as I can tell, final version of those already. And I think you're working on the off plat easements.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I don't expect any surprises with any of these.
Right, so you were prepared to offer a motion to,
I did.
oh, you did?
Mhm.
And then we didn't have,
Wait for a second.
oh, I'll second that motion. All right, we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor? Aye.
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 Hearing none opposed, motion carries.
Plan approval. Sort of the same thing, and most of these are just because these are interrelated things. If the plat changes, the plans change and vice versa. I think this all is in good shape too. The one outstanding question from a policy perspective on the plans was highlighted by Bruce in a memo requesting multiple water and sewer services to a lot. And what's different about that lot's development than almost any place else is there's one large common basement under several different buildings. So what you see on the surface is not what's happening underground. It would be extraordinarily difficult to run water and sewer into the lot and then split it amongst the buildings because the basement's in the way effectively. So he requested, and I support, allowing separate water and sewer services to the different, I'll say in quotes, buildings, even though it's from a foundation perspective, a building, because they all need service. So the committee's cool with that. That might be its own motion, really.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Does that need to be added as a contingency or would that be treated as a separate?
I think it would be policy direction to finishing the plans, really, more so than and frankly, in that case, the plans are finished. I was recommending a change, but if the committee's fine with not requiring a change, then there's no action needed.
So you're looking for, or it would be appropriate to move that we allow multiple water and sanitary sewer laterals to lot 2 due to planned buildings sharing a large common basement?
Correct. Yep. Mhm.
Make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
And then does that change just have to occur before March 31st? Is that what we're saying?
It already is drawn that
Oh,
way.
okay,
I
okay.
was saying, no, that's not standard. Please change it. And Bruce pointed out, well, there's some practical problems
Okay,
with your
got it.
policy
I see.
here.
Okay,
So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Guthrie.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none. Okay, so that was considered separately from the overall plan approval. So now move to the plan approval as a whole. Now that we've dealt with that contingency, are we all comfortable?
Yeah, so then the recommendation is approval with a deferred effective date on taking care of these things, most of which are in process and or done. I think the only thing is, literally recording an easement document and filling in some blanks, the pages.
I'll go ahead and make that motion that the Bell Farm Phase 1 plan approval, that we move with those exceptions that they'll be completed by March 31st, 2024.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that. And can we state the full motion?
Okay, could you state your,
I think so. Well, Sean, you said it well.
yes,
This will be moving that the committee approve the public improvement plan drawings with a deferred effective date of approval on completion of these 4 things. And if not done by March 31st next year, then the approvals will.
Yeah.
Okay. And this also has covenants of 8, 10, not
8,
7,
yes.
so I can just fix all of them. So
Okay.
all right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Catherine,
Yep.
I missed you. Sorry about that.
Then all opposed. Hearing none. All right. Bell Farm Phase 1 City Developer Agreements.
Yeah. So there's, I think probably the only thing that's really hanging out there is MMSD needs to get us some input on a dollar figure to fill in on a blank. That's not gonna be convoluted or complicated. I suspect the DNR limits are already in process, so that just takes a little time for me to get them. SWIMSMA, is that in process? I haven't tracked that. Are we doing okay on that?
I submitted an updated one to Eric last week or the week before. So
Sean, I would note on page 224 of the packet, agreement. I think Kathleen's last name is misspelled.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
SMOS like Sam, CHKAU. Thank you.
I'm just gonna go ahead and blame myself, but I'm all writing that.
It's a lot of consonants.
Yeah.
okay.
Catch though.
Were you an editor at some point?
Sometimes things just pop out. Yeah.
So I probably read that half a dozen times and didn't correct it. Anyway, let me back up.
Well, if we're good with the March 31st date. And we're just waiting for, you said MMSD needs to provide.
Yeah, they just have to get us a number.
Yeah, that's one of the contingencies.
Yeah.
Okay.
DNR will give us some paper. We're working on the SWIMSMA.
Well, then I guess I would move that we recommend that the Finance Committee and Common Council approve the city developer agreement with Bell Farm for phase 1 with a deferred effective date of approval upon completion of the 6 contingencies listed. And that if the above items are not completed by March 31st, 2024, then the approval is void.
I'll second that motion. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, motion carries. All right, so we are through that now. We have, do you have representatives of Red Tail Ridge here?
We do.
Just,
Thank you.
And
Thank you all.
Just to let you all know, this is on Finance and Council for tomorrow. Needs to go. So there is daylight.
I would ask unanimous consent to take up agenda items. Agenda item Red Tail Ridge Phase 1 Final Plat PC-2628, Red Tail Ridge Phase 1 Plan Approval 23-123, Red Tail Ridge Phase 1 City Developer Agreement 23-123 out of order and
No objection.
No objection.
Yeah, no objection.
all right, so we are now considering Red Tail Ridge Phase 1 Final Plat.
This is pretty much same thing, different name, state of completion wise. So yes.
May I just ask, so it doesn't bother me, but I do know that our meetings are closely scrutinized. And I think it's important for Gayatri to be showing. I know her videos.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Gayatri.
No, I wanted to
you're
put up
there.
the Red Tail Ridge, the product document.
Yes, I just.
So I
want-
had to throw my phone down for that.
Okay, I know that our meetings are carefully scrutinized and
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you for the point of order.
Okay, so we have sort of similar conditions on most of these sort of similar documents. We're at, I would say, a good degree of completion. I don't envision any problems with meeting any of these checkboxes in a timely way. In fact, pretty sure, Chad, these are all in line or very close to being checked off already in the
Yes.
background.
Yep.
So this March 31st date is probably completely immaterial to you.
Right.
And I know Wade Wise, the developer's engineer is on the call. Carrie Webben is on the call for this as well. So if there are any questions of them, they're here and available.
I just had a reminder from, we had a transportation work group meeting with the town of Springfield today, and they again expressed their concerns about truck traffic on Greenbrier, and so I'm just reminding you that signs need to be. a sign
Okay,
needs to be-
it's also in every contract
Yeah.
that we issue.
I just have to do my due diligence
Alright.
and remind you about that contingency. Thank you.
And that's on Greenbrier and High Road then. Right?
Where, yeah, well, they can take High Road, but
Yeah, but not from the north.
that's on Pheasant Branch, they can come from the north. The restriction in the contingency is not to use Pheasant Branch Road within the city of Middleton, and not to use Greenbrier Road in the town of Springfield.
So the town is just it's just Greenbrier Road.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's really, very little in terms of contingencies, I'll say, but deferred effective triggers on the plat.
Well, then I'm ready to move that we recommend that the common council approve the Red Tail Ridge plat with a deferred effective date of approval upon completion of the 4 contingencies listed. And that if the above items are not completed by March 31st, 2024, then the approval is void.
I'll second that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, hearing none, motion carries. Red Tail. Moving on to the next item, Red Tail Ridge, phase 1 plan approval.
Right, these also are all pretty straightforward. I had a chat with Wade that if we don't get a copy of the temporary limited easement from the property owner to the north, which is reflected in the current grading plan, the grading plan could otherwise be modified to obviate.
I can actually update you on that. There's
Oh, sure.
no way we're getting that
Hmm.
letter, so we'll have to.
Okay.
We could build the road to we've got options, or the plan may have to adjust slightly, but
Okay,
we're not gonna get it from the neighbor. I promise you that. It's.
and that's all I ever need to know is what I don't want is a property owner calling and saying, hey, there's an earth mover on my land.
No, we sent them a very nice email and their attorneys got back to us saying no and don't ever contact us again. So it's,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah, it was very abrupt, but
it's a shame.
we weren't that, right. We weren't we offered to compensate them for it even, and they just have no interest.
You normally think a little bit of edge grading like that. Big deal.
Yeah, we could go on about that for an hour, but there's not that.
Need to change the first contingency.
That's why I brought that up, because I would prefer to change it now.
What should it read?
That staff and developer work together, that I'm doing this off the top of my head, to amend the plans to accommodate the lack of TLE essentially.
So developer to work with staff to amend the plans to reflect. No. Amend the
Let's just say developer to amend plans to provide grading within plat boundary.
Yeah,
amend
yeah, that's perfect.
to provide grading within plat boundary.
Yeah.
All right, so now I will make a motion that we replace contingency 1 with this one, developer to amend plans to provide grading within plat boundary.
And I think there might be a typo in this, Sean. I don't mean to bring it up.
There is for sure a
Yeah.
typo on this.
That one caught me by
I
surprise.
fixed it, but
Yeah.
not here I didn't.
It's weird to be contingent on Bell Farms approval.
Well, why don't you work with Kathleen?
I think she'll have it tomorrow. Maybe.
Make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time this
We'll
gets to
have
the
to amend
minutes,
that one. too.
Yes, we will.
I was gonna say Red Tail Ridge instead. Yeah, I noticed that this afternoon, like, boy, my.
You were cutting and pasting,
Carry-
you were cutting and pasting, yeah.
Yeah, so we have to substitute Red Tail Ridge for Bell Farm.
So I don't get a second for my, because I think we're supposed to.
Yeah,
go
yeah.
one by
Sure.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll shut up.
All right, so since there
I'll
was.
second
Okay.
your motion to the first.
The
bullet point.
providing-
Yeah,
Provide grading within plat boundary.
yep.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
All right,
now I will make another motion for bullet number 6 to replace Bell Farm with Red Tail Ridge.
I'll second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now we've
Now
dealt
go
with the
back to
contingency. Yeah,
Yeah, main one.
the main one. So do we have a motion to approve the public improvement plan drawings with a deferred effective date of approval upon completion of the contingencies as amended?
I'll make that motion.
All right, I'll second that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
I'm sorry, I didn't capture the second. Was that you, Charles?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
It's been horrible tomorrow.
Red Tail Ridge Phase 1 City Developer Agreements.
So we got a few things here to go through kind of first before we get into the rest of it. Because there are just some specific questions that are proposed as changes to our template. And maybe I'll just overview them here, but if you want to see the full context of the text, that would be fine with me. The first one is, normally we ask the developer to put in 5% of construction costs as, it says fee, but it's effectively treated as a deposit. So in the end, it all washes out no matter what number we pick for construction, for us to hire construction observation at the developer's expense, right? In this particular case, 5% is what I hope to be an unreasonably high number. So we were looking more at 3.5, still seems like we're pretty well protected. And like I say, at the end, if we collected too much money, we just give the excess back. If we collected too little money, we just get paid up at the end. So I have no heartburn recommending this change to our template, but it would be an important thing, I think, for the committee and council to be aware of as a change to our template.
And Sean, is it a template for all?
It's a
Oh, like
It's a
it's not just
boilerplate
this,
template
okay.
that says fill in these few blanks, but
So it would
everything
apply
else
going
is
Agreements, or is it just this project?
probably not. I think just because this one is a pretty high ticket item, the 5% turned
Okay.
into a really high number. For
Okay.
a smaller project,
Right,
5 is perfectly reasonable. In fact, sometimes we have to send a supplemental bill to say, you got to pay us extra.
yeah,
We don't like to do that. We'd rather give money back, but in
Okay.
this case, I think it was just too much that
Okay.
we'd be asking for. The second one, we've got right now the full cost of future improvements to the half of High Road that abuts this plat. And the part of, phase 1 is the entirety of the frontage of High Road. So the request was, well, could we split that contribution to the city over the first 2 phases instead of just the first phase? In effect, paying 25% and 25% of that frontage instead of 50% all at once. I don't have any particular stake in that. We don't have imminent plans to rebuild High Road right now. We don't control the right of way to a portion of it anyway. But it, again, is a policy level decision that's baked into this. The third issue we'll have to give some guidance on is providing surety for a longer than typical timeline. I don't know to what degree you're familiar, but years ago, the state legislature said, thou shalt not, require surety for longer than 14 months from substantial completion. Substantial completion is defined as the lower layer of pavement, period. And we said, well, then to get a 1-year warranty on our public improvements, that effectively means that between substantial completion and final acceptance by the city is 2 months. Because there's no other way to get a 12-month warranty. I don't think that's what the legislature wanted, but that is what they told us. And so the developer's request here is, would you allow us to provide longer surety than you could require, which would allow us then to try to get to substantial completion this year, but not to final acceptance until next year, which then normally with the lower layer of pavement on the ground, we're fine with issuing building permits because fire, EMS, they can all get there. The water works, the sewer works. We just don't have the top layer of pavement and some of the landscaping done. I'm fine with this. In fact, this is how we used to do this until the state told us to knock it off. So I think this is a fine proposal and endorse it. And then the last thing is actually a two-part question is right now the phasing plan shows that in phase 3, we go out to Pheasant Branch Road with a connection so that there's a secondary way in for emergency vehicles. And in phase 4, we make the water loop connection, which has the potential to have a lot of customers on a lollipop, a dead end water main feed that has some internal looping, but it's all served through one water main. We don't normally like to have too many customers out of water at any one time, but this has that potential. So it's not a pressure concern. It's not even a fire flow concern. It's a, if this thing breaks, how many people are out of water? And that could turn into a fire flow concern, I guess, but I think it's a risk tolerance thing more than anything. So just in looking at the phasing plan, part of the question was, could we get a temporary gravel driveway out to Pheasant Branch Road in an earlier phase? Maybe part of phase 2 is we're not building a road, but let's just stub a driveway out that way. Just gravel, just for fire trucks. And then it's just an open question because it's a risk tolerance question. I don't have any, a definitive guidance for a recommendation on water looping, but phase 4 could be a lot of hoses.
And when would that happen? When would phase 4, or it says wait until phase 3? When would phase 4?
Well, phase 3 is the Pheasant Branch connection. Phase 4 is the water. The way the phasing's laid out.
Okay.
I'm not saying that can't work. I'm just pointing out that there are some risks inherent.
And
in
how
that.
how long would they go without having the water looping, I guess, timing wise?
Yeah. Do you have a sense on that, Chad? When phase 4 happens? How many years from phase 1?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just add a few comments to this one, if you don't mind. We can certainly discuss redesigning phases after we get the first phase going, because of some of these concerns, and perhaps get closer to the water. But we have a lot of offsite work to do to bring water to complete that loop.
Mm-hmm.
We got to come up from a long ways up to our plat with good intention of providing service to future developments to the north. Makes sense. I get it. It costs about $1.2 million to get that water to our site. And we need to build up some cash reserves before we can honestly install that extension to some degree. That's just some background essentially.
Okay.
If the economy stays the way things are right now, it's less than 2 years from now. If it slows down, it could be longer. But that's a more, a guess. As our plan is laid out now, I would say it's about 2 years.
To phase 4.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you're building like 2 phases a year.
Yeah, basically, it's like, and this is neither here nor there, but we're going to start working with you again on phase 2 as soon as we're done with phase 1.
So the first three policy issues, we could. Sean, you have no concerns with those three?
The second one, I don't have any opinion of. It's really a financial question, and I don't think the city has a wrong answer either way. It's really just what do you want?
So we could make the recommendation to council to grant what the developer is requesting. It's the fourth one that seems like a different animal.
Yeah, that one makes
Yes.
me a little nervous
Yeah.
to not have access, like, it's not ideal, I guess.
So-
Or like what you were saying, like a gravel road, something that would be, I
We-
think, helpful, but I agree, the first three seem okay, but the fourth one seems like we need to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Bounce down to that. Oops.
What's
Get to
the
the right
rationale for not doing it in phase 3, just the.
There really isn't one because this is a relatively new conversation to some degree.
Mm.
I mean, the overall discussion in my mind is I'm open to changing the phasing as well. We had to pick a direction and there's no magic formula to the direction that we picked. We kind of did. So before we come back for our SIP on phase 2, the conversation of having to have that egress at that time, okay, then maybe we change our lines, so we get it built in. The conversation about water is, well, maybe it's not this phase, but we'll do phase 3 this way, so that the water loop will be complete within a year and a half, or have a fairly good idea. So I know that you had to bring it up to the committee, but I'm not sure how it affects phase 1 specifically. It's more of a phase 2 and phase 3 discussion,
Mhm,
really.
I would agree.
It can be. I just think this exhibit
Yes.
D to phase 1 might be setting an expectation like, oh, the city's fine with that.
No, and okay.
Even
fair.
if the city just goes on record that says, hey, we're not set in stone here.
Yeah,
I'd be
okay.
okay with that. frankly.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's a good understanding.
It's, when I was looking at this, I thought, oh, this gravel road probably is doable, just for fire. That gets you right to phase 2. The
So,
water I was more nervous of.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's hard to do.
so we could recommend that council grant the 3 requests. The first 3 in the list, which isn't showing, but
Mhm.
and then we could have a second motion to address the looping issue and conveying our consensus that should be taken care of before. We don't want to leave homes vulnerable to the main break, a water outage if there's a break. So that would be 2 motions, and then the third one would be to approve the city developer agreement with the contingencies. But I'm not sure how to phrase the second motion.
Right, do we want to say that it needs to be revisited in discussions of phase 2 or something, or? I don't know either exactly how to, when do we,
Chips.
do you have any?
Suggested
Yeah,
wording?
I would be okay with that, to just go on record saying, that the city doesn't endorse this phasing plan beyond phase 1.
yes,
So I like,
yeah,
the acceptable.
yeah, I mean, if you
Yeah.
look, maybe phase 4 becomes phase 1 or 2, excuse me, and we can redo things to accommodate those desires to some degree.
Okay. So I'm gonna try to
rephrase that.
make a motion.
I don't know if Gayatri had a
Oh,
comment.
did you have a comment?
No, I'm on the same line. I think, that can be done separately.
Okay.
And just say that, we're endorsing and then we can revisit the looping at a different time.
Okay. So I'll move that we recommend to Finance Committee and the Common Council granting the developers' first three requests, and they're not showing on the screen, but it's paying 3.5% instead of 5% of construction costs and paying 50% of future high road improvement costs in both phases 1 and 2, and providing surety for a longer than typical time. Straighten those up. That's the, and that, well, I'll make that a second.
Yeah, and then
That's one motion.
I second the motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing none opposed. You were ready to make that second motion?
Second motion is we move that, or I move that we recommend to council and the finance committee that the city not endorse the phasing plan beyond phase 1 so that the issue of water looping can be revisited.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Before I call the vote, Sean, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, motion carries 4-0.
And the big one.
Yeah.
So the big one, when you have a chance, Sean, if you'll scroll down so we can see how they can, yeah. So I move that we recommend to the finance, we recommend that the finance committee and common council approve the city developer agreement for Red Tail Ridge phase 1 with a deferred effective date of approval upon completion of the 8 contingencies. And that if the above items are not completed by March 31st, 2024, then the approval is void.
I'll second that.
And I'll have to modify this first contingency based on what we just talked about.
Yeah.
But I'll take care of that.
Okay, so then the motion should be amended to reflect that the first contingency needs to be modified.
I'll have to make I'm gonna make a
Yeah.
motion that, or I'm gonna move that we amend first contingency to reflect. Think about this, because this is a council decision. I move that we change the first contingency to strike the 4th item. And I say it that way because we agreed to the first 3 that those could be accepted. And yet we did not defer the secondary access.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so voting just on that amendment first, correct?
I missed the second. I apologize.
I'm the second, and the amendment is to strike 4.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Hearing none opposed, motion carries. And then did you want to insert what we decided on that 4th item?
I don't
Really
I don't think
need
we have
it.
to.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, all right. Okay, in that case, did you want to revisit the motion to approve pending the contingencies?
I think I made that motion.
Yeah, you made that, and I
Yeah.
think you need to change it now because we.
Right, because we had
Yeah.
amended,
Amended, yeah.
right, but
Yeah.
who seconded that one?
That was me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that's the original one.
Yep.
Back to that.
Yeah, back to the main motion. Okay, so All in favor?
I,
I,
All right, hearing none opposed. We are through item 16. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, and now we're going to take up item number 5, which is the next item order because we deferred its consideration to get through the developments, which is mixed use redevelopment 8309 Greenway Boulevard TIA scope of work PC 2645.
Right, so we back up a bit.
And I believe Alder Walkus had comments that she would like read into the record on this. So I will pull them up. Agenda item number 5. As this is in District 2, I appreciate the chance to weigh in. I am okay with the modified TIA, but would like to know why the intersection at Pleasant View and Greenway is not included.
See that map?
Sure.
That might be similar to a question I had.
Down to, whoops. Too far here. There. So the question is about Pleasant View and Green. Is that correct?
yep,
Yeah,
I think it's intended that it only includes signalized intersections that far out. And this is a roundabout intersection.
Can you show the intersection? With your,
Um,
there, okay. That's a roundabout?
This, well, it's
Well,
being
will be.
constructed right now
Yeah.
as a
Oh, yes.
roundabout.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And I think our guidelines call for us to look at signalized intersections this far out.
Well, aren't we thinking of updating the guidelines?
We are thinking about it.
Cause I wonder, I mean, and I was gonna ask why take out 2 and 7 up north? And I asked that because I know there's been a lot of discussion about why wasn't the Frank Lloyd Wright Century Avenue intersection included in the TIA for Red Tail Ridge? Because that's gonna get the traffic that is diverted from not being able to turn left. So
yeah.
I would be in favor of adding, if we can add, putting in the Greenway and Pleasant View, even though it isn't 100% consistent with the guidance. And I would also ask that we leave 2 and 7 in there.
Yeah, we certainly can. I think this is just guidance from the traffic engineer that said it's unlikely to affect these intersections to the degree that any improvements would be recommended because of this site development. But that doesn't mean we can't study it any.
Can we study an intersection though that's not, is it just modeling? Like, cause that's improves, when is that gonna be completed? Like, are we able to even study that?
It is modeling and it's
It's just-
sort
okay.
of.
It's
I
not
mean, to some
actual-
degree, right? Once we get into traffic forecasting for volumes and
Yeah.
patterns, it's really crystal ball anyway.
Yeah,
So. I think in a general sense, roundabouts have so much more capacity than signalized I mean, we just never see queues at roundabouts unless there are kids trying to get to the high school all within a 15-minute period of time. Then it happens.
and the goal is to study this, like, what would we change, I guess,
Exactly.
about the pheasant?
And what you end up changing about a roundabout is you have so much traffic trying to go through it that you add a second lane,
Okay,
but it's pretty far out there for that to happen.
with the Pleasant View, right, especially since we just are constructing it. I'm just wondering if realistically, if we would
No,
change
that's a good
anything.
point.
But I think the 2 and 7 make sense to add.
Okay. Yeah, and I think too, they were looking at this whole corridor and saying, you know what, there's so much traffic on Highway 14 that anything added at this one site just isn't gonna crush that signal. I mean, you won't even see it. So it doesn't mean we can't.
Mhm.
They're just looking at it saying, why bother?
Yeah.
I can leave them off too. It's up to the committee. I do think, I can't remember if Frank Lloyd Wright and Century were left, if that was left off because his thought was why bother, you know, there's not gonna be impact, or if it just was an oversight or just beyond the,
I think it was a distance cutoff that said, we go a mile and that's it. And it was more like 1.2 miles.
What about that number 7 though?
yeah, I was just thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, 'cause that's not
Terrace,
on
yeah.
the corridor, and that we would maybe wanna, I don't know, do something different with traffic flow.
Yeah,
It'd be no problem.
Okay.
okay.
I think they were thinking, you know, there's not a lot of side street traffic there. But it still wouldn't be irrational to say, well, let's just look at that, make sure
Yeah.
we're not introducing a weird problem that we
Right.
need to take care of.
Yeah, let's add 7 back in.
So the
Yeah.
motion could be, unless Gayatri has some additional feedback.
No, I just had a question. Sean, did you say that there was going to be a roundabout, Pleasant View and Greenway Boulevard?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's being built as a roundabout. Black Hawk is being built as a roundabout. Quarry is being built as a roundabout.
Okay.
So the only signal you'll still see out here is down at Old Sock and up at 14.
Okay. So the Black Hawk signal is being removed as well.
Yes, that's gonna be a roundabout.
So I could make a motion. Let's see. I move that we modify the scope of the TIA to remove 8 intersections. Not including number 7. And that's it. That's my motion.
And then we'd have to add the cost back in for number 7 too.
Well, I think it was. Yeah, but we were doing this not to, I mean, we were gonna save some money, but it wasn't to try to fit within a reduced budget, correct?
Yeah, it's not a budget issue.
Okay, all right.
I mean, this saves the developer some money, but that's not our goal. Our goal is
Okay.
to not waste time.
Yeah. All right. Then never mind. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none. We are through item 5. We've done all budgetary and development related items. So now we are down to committee meetings in conflict with religious holidays. This was something that came to my attention. It's well, it's getting to be that time of year for those of us who are Jewish, where it's the high holidays, and frequently meetings, public meetings, only really take into consideration certain Christian holidays for scheduling purposes. I think that it would be better for us as a committee to be a more inclusive body, to look for religious holidays and culturally significant days where people who might have things that they would like to express to the committee are unable to participate. And on those days, I feel that we should decline to meet as a committee and move the meetings when there are conflicts. Um.
Great.
There was a comment from Alder Wokos that she would like read into the record, which was that she would like to know the reason for this request and would like to know if other committees are considering similar changes. I see no problem observing the holidays as the city currently has them, I believe by ordinance. And if an individual cannot attend for personal or religious reasons, they might be given the same courtesy that I am being shown today. As her comment, it's my understanding, Sean, that Middleton is going to be looking at this for other committees as well.
Oh, good. I hadn't heard.
But I'm not sure. I recall when the two of us spoke about it that you'd mentioned that there was something in.
We had in years past talked about it and nothing fruitful came of it. And I don't know if it was because not enough people understood what are the non-Christian major holidays. Certainly there are other major world religions, but I think then the enemy of the good became perfect, is like, well, but what are all the religions? Yeah, and we just didn't know enough. So I think that's where it fell apart.
Would it be possible to defer this agenda item until like more members are present and then maybe there's more discussion across all committees so that we're doing things consistently?
Well, September 25th is coming. And this is one of the big ones.
It is actually our.
Maybe why the reason came up.
Yeah, I looked. I looked at the calendar and did realize that. And I realized just how many different little barriers that we do put up to public participation when we don't move meetings from known culturally significant days. And so I do think that for this item, we should, Sean, you identified meetings on across several calendars that can conflict with significant either religious or culturally significant days.
That's the thing, and it's one of those situations where Google will drive you nuts.
Yeah.
I feel like, and that's where I'm wondering, can we defer this just because we've been here for over
Yeah.
2 hours?
I-
It's
I'm-
like complicated, and I'm glad that you brought it up because I want to support this, but I just want to make sure that we do it in a way that doesn't offend anybody else too.
Yeah, I concur with Carrie on the time because I'm keenly aware that any one of us needing to use the facilities, the meeting grinds to. Also, so in the interest of time, but I do want to thank you for bringing this up. And I like that Sean highlighted Christmas Day because I think that is kind of what we're getting at here. Everybody can assume Christmas Day, we're not going to have a meeting, but.
And Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
which isn't
but we
even
do
a
that,
thing.
And we
Whatever.
have meetings on high
Yeah.
holidays and things and don't even think about it.
I agree.
And I know council or sustainability was when I think it was the first committee, well, not everybody meets on the third Wednesday of the month or third Monday of the month, but it's Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And so for the last 2 years, we have changed the schedule because that is it's a staff holiday, but the staff didn't get the holiday and, and other
Yeah.
people work too. And anyway, so I'm glad you bring this up. I wonder if we can agree right now to do something about that September 25th meeting.
Mhm.
And then that gives us, once that is done, that gives us more time to.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to suggest, that we look at maybe like a 6-week to 8-week rolling period where we look in advance. And then we have time to actually sit and make sure that we're addressing these. So,
But if we don't meet on the 25th, I have no problem rescheduling far enough in advance or foregoing a meeting and just having a longer meeting before and after. I know a lot depends on who's got something in the queue.
Usually if it's not critical, it doesn't matter.
So
Yeah.
can I move that we reschedule the September 15th? Or I'm sorry, September 25th meeting?
Yes.
Right, I'll move that I want to say reschedule. I'll just say,
Don't meet.
yeah.
Did
move
not
that
meet
we
on
do
September.
Not meet on September
Yeah.
25th.
Yeah. Cause that was my other question is like. It's known that we meet, the second
Mhm.
week and fourth week and all of the developers, everyone knows this, so
Yeah.
that's why I want to make sure, like,
Yeah.
it's great to like publish it as far as advanced as we can, right? So that
Yeah.
we don't, everyone can expect, they know when the meetings occur.
Yeah.
And they can adjust their timelines accordingly.
Yeah, I agree with
Mhm.
that. And that's why I want to
Yeah.
do this. But,
So you need a second.
yeah, I will second that motion. To not meet on the 25th and then to determine that date when there are more members of the committee present. Was that the?
Can we defer it to the next meeting?
We'll bring it up as a future meeting agenda item.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
I don't want to lose sight of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, do we know, is this list, like Sean, like you were saying, is this?
Well, this is
I just
a
don't know.
list.
Right.
That the UW adopted.
Yeah.
Right,
And
yeah,
then there's another list that seemed way more comprehensive that somebody in North Carolina put together. And it seems like they kind of got into it. So UW seems to reference this as one of their sources. I didn't get a sense for what their other sources are.
yeah.
They give a nice
will
rundown of
bring
what
this
these
up.
things are and where they come from.
Mhm.
All right, so
Motion. And you seconded,
You
right?
seconded.
yeah.
Mhm.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
All opposed? Hearing none, we will not meet on Yom Kippur. Thank you, everyone. I've been involved for a long time. As a citizen, going to public meetings, this is far and away the most receptive anybody I've ever been on has been toward moving a meeting off of Yom Kippur. So thank you for allowing me and others to still participate in this committee and observe that holiday. It means a lot to me. All right, next agenda item is the committee secretary. So we have the authority to designate a secretary from among our membership. And one of the topics of discussion that has come up in various ways during our discussions in this committee is Sean's workload. And one thing that Sean, how much time do you typically spend?
Minutes is probably a couple hours. Every other.
Can I ask Sean, they know Robert's rules.
Yeah.
Robert's rule says minutes are a record of what was done at a meeting, not a record of what was said. And I totally appreciate the minutes you prepare. I really do. I, in my career, had to write minutes and they were the proceedings of meetings. So
Yeah.
you can imagine how there was very much a back and forth about them. Writing, and I find minutes that just have the motions we did to be a little lacking. However, that is what is allowed and what is recommended. And I think since we have video available to anybody who wants to know, well, what was the discussion that led up to this series of motions, I feel like we maybe should try seeing what it's like for Sean's workload to just have minutes like what they do for finance and council, which finance is just the motion, who moved, who seconded, and what the vote was. I looked at Sun Prairie's Public Works Committee minutes. Theirs are shorter. They still provide a little detail, but the detail they provide is pretty much like the background information that you provide in your agenda to let people know this is what the agenda item was. And then they go with move, second, and the vote. And I wonder if you could do that and like, repurpose some of your helpful background text from your agenda into a much condensed set of minutes.
Often the staff comments become the basis for the minutes if committee members endorse the staff recommendation. Obviously when committee members have a different opinion than the staff recommendation, well, then we're, making a different motion. And I'll often enough then go to the videotape and figure out, well, what was said, what was meant, because sometimes we don't always phrase things nicely on the fly. But I have a pretty good sense, having been here, what we actually wanted it to be. And so I try to balance that a little bit too. And I try also to keep it brief, because I tend to believe too that we should be writing down what happened, maybe with a flavor for why did that happen, without getting into, then this person said this, and then this person, because I've read those minutes and they're awful to read. Even if I was there, I just find myself really bored trying to slog through them. So it's almost everything's a balance for me. And that's part of what takes time too, I think, is that I'm a little bit trying to figure out, well, what did we say and what did we mean and what's not too much background. So this is not the stressor in my life. This is not the thing that stops me from getting something meaningful done. But everything adds up, right? I'm exempt from 40 hours a week. And yet I'm not exempt from getting some food and some sleep. And someplace in between there is a happy spot. And then someplace beyond there is not a happy spot. So I can't say that, I'm going to put my finger on this and say, oh my God, this is what's killing me. This is not what's killing me.
So what do you think about, I'll say it straight out, I can't volunteer to be the committee secretary.
Yeah, I can't either as the chair. And I think maybe deferring consideration of this until we have more members of the committee present.
That would be good.
But I do want to just bring up one little quirk. The retention schedule for the video and audio recordings shortens after the approval of the final minutes. I was reading our ordinances related to this. So I just at some point, future committees or future decision makers in the city might decide that they don't want to keep the recordings, which is just an issue that I wanted to flag based on some comments. So if we're comfortable deferring the committee secretary until a later date with more members present.
Good.
All right, Gayatri, are you comfortable deferring?
Yeah, I think that's a good option.
All right. So, topic number 19. Future meeting agenda items, no discussion or action. And so, Alder Nairo.
I have some holiday, respecting holidays. That's one. I'm going to ask that we discuss a plan for mowing or maintaining rather, retention basins. I have a constituent, Brian Wakeham, who's been patiently listening. I won't read his comment now, but I will say Misty Valley has been an issue and Sean's aware of it, but I think it applies to others as well, so that's why I bring that up. And possibly that discussion could take place with the CLC. Since that's one of the reasons we have a rep. And maybe even with DNR.
Yeah, and we've been, as staff, approaching it more as a stormwater utility asset, so.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
Just throw something.
Oh, the irony.
It's
City attorney.
that can't talk about, you can just
You just
Nope,
bring it up.
just
bring it up.
The attorney needed to gag Sean.
He's not watching.
That looks heavy, but is that a glass case? Let's chuck that.
Anything else?
I didn't hear you, Sean, so
Do you have any other items?
Nope, I had those two.
I don't have anything at this time.
Great, Gayatri.
Nope. I don't have anything either.
Okay, I would like us to, because we have, we get requests from a number of city committees. Some of those requests are things that we need to consider. But some, like what we get from the arts committee are things where it's fairly standard. So I'd like us to standardize a process for requests from the art committee. Specifically with regard to utility lines, line of sight, water.
So I'm writing standardize a process for requests from arts committee.
From arts committee.
Any others did you have, Charles?
Well, you,
I have one more to suggest. I would like to have the committee revisit the frequency with which we do these future meeting agenda items to be more consistent with some of our peer committees.
Frequency of this agenda.
Very better.
Not discussing it. Okay.
all right. And I think we have reached the end of our agenda. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Gayatri.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Pretty impressive for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say so.
yeah,
Let me-